Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Four Horsemen, which is brought to you by Win-Win Board Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games usually run about 60 to 120 minutes. Four Horsemen is an epic cooperative resource management and deck building game where you, the players, take up the mantle of legendary heroes to prevent the end of the world. You will face off against a main demonic foe, and you'll need to utilize your followers to stop catastrophic events, acquire relics, and delay the final ride of the Four Horsemen. Each hero has their own divine powers and starting deck. Upgrade your deck by acquiring powerful relic cards each turn. Play strategically and choose carefully which relics to play and which to sacrifice to optimize your ability to respond to new events. Destroy the demonic horde attempting to overrun the world, and delay the horsemen on their ride to bring about total destruction. Will your strategy keep the world intact long enough to seal away the demonic entity forever? Four Horsemen is a game where every round brings new challenges, with a large variety of heroes, villains, and events. Four Horsemen has thousands of unique scenarios, meaning no two apocalypses are the same. Do you have what it takes to stop the Horsemen? Let's find out. So, this is a big cooperative game, one of my favorite types of games, and you have many ways to lose this game. If the Four Horsemen, any one of them, reaches the middle of their board, you're going to lose. If all the heroes in play become fallen, you're going to lose. And if one of these zones totally fills up with demons, depending on how many you're going to allow and how you're going to play, that will also cause you to lose the game. So many ways to lose, only really one way to win, by fulfilling the requirements of the current apocalypse that you're playing. And so you'll get to choose a binding ritual and an apocalypse. So you can mix and match these, which really gives you different types of apocalypses you're going to be dealing with. Now, your main demon that you're fighting is this card, and you'll see in the middle of the card there's a number. This is related to the number of hours, or actually rounds, that you'll be playing. And you know, the course of setup here is going to be dependent on how many players and which heroes they choose, and how you set up the different relic decks and the event deck based on the apocalypse you're playing. So lots of directions and how you can play, and it really does change up the order of things and which type of events you have to deal with. Now, this particular apocalyptic card that I have in play is for the tutorial, the first adventure you're going to jump into and play. But they're going to be various setup, like I said, with each of them. And all that information is on the card, which events are going to be played and so forth. But on the back of the card, you'll see there's additional information just in general about the scenario you're playing, which is really nice. Now, like always, everything you're seeing here is very much prototype. And I can already tell you that there's already been changes and UI changes, basically, in how these boards lay out and so forth. But you have your Horseman board, you've got your world board, you've got the relics, and you've got your events. And those are the main boards that you're going to be playing off of through the whole course of the game. And of course, each player is going to get a mythological hero, and there's so many to choose from. It was really incredible, and they're really vastly different with different powers and abilities and different starting card decks and so forth. So it's a really interesting aspect. And on the back of each of the hero cards or play boards, you're going to have what your starting deck is and information about the hero and their abilities and such. And then on the other side is where you'll be playing off of. And at the top, these two rows are crucial. You have your life or your divinity, and you have your corruption. Now, what's interesting about corruption is that the more corruption you obtain through the course of the game, as you are on Earth doing things maybe you shouldn't be doing, but you are trying to stop the demon horde. But the thing here is, the more corruption you get, the more you can access your special abilities. And everyone has different abilities. And you see a little skull and a number above it showing you how much of that corruption you need in order to activate those abilities. Now, it's a fine line, because whenever those two lines, the divinity and corruption, cross, oh man, that becomes an issue, because your hero has now become fallen. Now again, that isn't horrible, but if all the heroes become fallen, you're going to lose the game. The other thing that'll happen once your hero has fallen is anytime you would lose divinity or gain corruption, you won't do either of those things on your player board. Instead, you will take one of the Four Horsemen and move them ever closer to the middle of the board, where they will win and you will lose. Along the way, it's going to cost you resources and make demons appear and all kinds of things based on where they're going. So you can choose, but you as the players get to decide which of those Four Horsemen move forward. The next row on your player board represents your followers. Now, the one on the far left is unique to your hero, but the other three are going to be universal to all heroes. So you have wisdom, you've got zeal, and prestige. everyone will have those, and you'll be able to spin them through the course of the game. Yes, these are your followers, but you have to spin them. Yeah, they are a bit fodder in the game for sure. At the bottom of your player board, you'll see there's areas to play your cards that you'll get every round, and you'll always be sacrificing one, so in the far right column. So you got to choose wisely about which cards you put into play and which ones you save for future rounds and future events that you have to deal with. You'll see at the bottom of the card, there's a boon, and use, and a sacrifice. Depending on where you put it in those categories on your player board will determine what you get to do with this card. Every round of the game consists of 4 phases. First, you're going to be dealing with events, and then you're going to be doing heroic actions. Next, you're going to be hunting for a relic card because you will be sacrificing cards every round, but you get cards every round, which is really nice. And finally, you have the doom clock, so to say, counting down to the end of the world. So at the top of the round, a new event card comes out. If there's already one in play, it'll move down the line. Now let's take a closer look at these. I am set up for a 2-player game, so you follow the 2-player column. And you'll see there's a 3-player and 4-player and so forth. So at the bottom though, you'll see there's an X value. You can spend these resources. The first line shows that you can just cumulatively, among the players, spend the resources it calls for, and then you have to spend the resources below that. All players will spend that in order to cancel the card. If you cancel it, you flip it over, and none of this comes into effect. If you don't, you follow in the Act 1, 2, and 3 what's going to happen. So you follow here again, 2-player. In Act 1, you're going to lose resources, all players. It shows you exactly which ones you're losing on your player board. You remove them, and again, you can substitute that for corruption if you want. But then the next, Volume 2, or Act 2, I should say, when this card moves down, you'll see there's a +3 and a +3. You're going to roll a 6-sided dice to see where 3 demons appear out in the world. And here, we just have red cubes representing them. In the final game, there'll be little miniatures for that, but here you just know that those are the demons that come out. And you need to deal with them because you can quickly become overrun. So dealing with these event cards is going to be key. And you will want to cancel them at times for sure, as long as you have the resources and so forth to do so. But as they move down the line, they're going to get worse and worse. And these event cards are always going to cost you resources and or add more demons to the board. And then we move to the heroic actions. First thing you're doing is really selecting the different relic cards you're going to want to put into play, putting them into the boon, the use, and finally sacrificing a card. You'll be doing it every round. And you can choose to move your hero to one of those zones. Why? Because there might be more demons there that you need to deal with. Then you go through and activate each of your relic cards. Now, let's just take a look at one as an example. We have Smite. So if it's in the boon section of my board, I'm going to gain 2 zeal. If it's in the use section, you're going to eliminate 3 demons and lose 1 zeal. And if it's in the sacrifice, you're going to remove 3 demons and another player can remove 1. So which is really fantastic. It is worth sacrificing it at times to do these various things. So again, it depends on where you have it on your player board. And you also have the option of using any of your special abilities, any of the 6, as long as you have enough corruption to pay for them. And it definitely ramps up as you get more and more corruption. So it might be worth falling in order to get some of those higher level things. But here for Michael, you'll see his first one is Punish the Wicked. And on this particular ability, he only needs 0 amount of corruption in order to activate it. He can eliminate 1 of the demons if he spends 1 faith. But if you move down below that, if he has 5 corruption for Smite the Heathens, you're going to eliminate 3 demons. You're going to take 1 corruption, but one of the other heroes at the table will gain a zeal. And what's nice about the heroic actions and a lot of the game is that it's simultaneous play. You can have lots of discussion around what you're doing and how you're spending your resources or your followers and how you're dealing with the demons. But it's really up to you, everyone at the table, to just kind of simultaneously play and deal with whatever they need to do in their particular spots or the zones they're in around the table. Now, when demons come out, you might be rolling dice to put them in places, or it might say put them in all zones. It varies for every different type of event and how you deal with those things for sure. And the last thing you're going to be doing in that heroic actions phase is that any demons that are left in your zone are going to do damage to you. So you'll reduce your divinity down. So you really need to eliminate them as much as possible. Next up, you're hunting for relics, and one of the changes here from what you're seeing laid out on the table is that you're going to be drawing 3 relic cards. You'll pay the cost in the top right, whichever one you want to keep, the other 2 get discarded. And then you're going to draw back up to 5 cards. You'll always discard 1 card and sacrifice 1 card every round, so you always will start with a new hand of 5 in the next round. And that's really the key of what you're doing for searching for relics, and then you come back to advancing the doom clock down by 1. And at the end of the round, based on the scenario you're playing, you'll apply any end of hour or end of round effects. So that's basics of what you're doing through the whole course of the game. You're spending your followers, you're trying to be strategic about how you're doing that, and really you have to work together. And there are several ways to lose. Like I said, do not let the Four Horsemen get to the middle, one of them. You do not let one of the areas become overrun with demons. And also, you want to make sure not all your heroes have fallen. But again, a fallen hero and corruption is key to activating some of those much needed effects. So you have to be really choosy and selective about how you use all your resources in the game. And you hope, in the end, to come out on top. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, this game is about resources and deck building, but it is your followers that you're sacrificing in order to save everyone else. So it's an interesting mix for sure, and the co-op and the simultaneous play works really well. But there are multiple ways for these horsemen to move, not just if a hero's fallen, or if an event card comes out, it may dictate which of the horsemen to move, or you may get to choose. So it just depends on what's happening in the game and how the scenario plays out. It's really interesting, the mix and match, how you can do those different scenarios, different apocalypse as it hits. But it is very thematic, and I really did enjoy the fact that the simultaneous play and a lot of table talk in this game really is crucial to what you're trying to do. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.